a little kid can very easily get into your blind spot. Right now, as you can see, that fire is still burning. I was also told, here's what legal tint looks like on your window at nighttime. Now, this is what illegal tint looks like, and that's a big difference. You can see this road is extremely flooded because these drainage ditches are not being emptied, they're not being cleaned, because right down here, this stuff runs off into the ditches, fills them up. But in this case, unions literally found themselves in the same boat. The car came from right over here. All the way off in the distance there, you can see those trees. It drove through those trees. And that's going to be the biggest part of this problem. They've got to get all this grain that came out of this train car out. Cameron, this 2-count indictment says that Michael Hooks is accused of extortion and bribery. We're in the heart of the cleanup. You can look behind me and see the Centerpoint Energy crews are still out cleaning this mess up. If you take a look up there, you can see they're fixing power lines. Let me set the scene for you first right now, guys. Right behind me over here, you have families and police officers trying to get information and agree with family. They just found out their loved ones have been shot here. Now, so far, I know we have at least one dead person on the scene. Saw that body for myself. Right back over here, you have investigators looking for any forensics evidence, trying to gather bullets, whatever they can find. Firefighters are working extremely hard, but if you look right over here, you can tell it's not really doing much good. Although they are putting water on this fire, we still have flames coming out of this building. Now, take a look from Sky I-13 and you can see the scene is pretty bad. I am being told that so far, a total of 4 buildings have gone up in flames. That is not good for anyone involved in this situation. As we come back down live now on the ground, you can look over here and see the neighbors are standing around. They are literally helpless, watching their homes go up in flames. That cleanup is still going on this afternoon. As you can see, this family has loaded up stuff all day long. That trailer is just about filled with everything they could salvage from this home. And here's why they had to do that as they continue the cleanup process right now. This is the home. It was destroyed. You can see it was knocked off of its foundation, and that is the case for so many people living in High Island this evening. On High Island, Umberto's destructive presence wasn't hard to spot today as we saw ripped off roofs, nearly flattened filling stations, uprooted trees, and trucks filled with debris as people worked to clean up.
We were in here when water started coming in like you wouldn't believe.
Umberto called Robert Rust off guard. Rust figured the Category 1 storm that was first forecasted as a tropical depression would only bring rain.
But we went down at 7 o'clock that afternoon to watch the surf, because it was kind of choppy. Then we come on home, had something to eat.
Russ says soon after that, right around 2 a.m., it was clear that Umberto was much more than that, as his winds woke him from his sleep.
And then after a while, it blowed and blowed, and I heard stuff flying all over the place, and then you could hear it start to roar. That's when the roof left.
But the Russ family isn't the only one dealing with cleanup. At the Payton home, the steps that once led to the attic now lead to nowhere. The hurricane destroyed the home this family has lived in for 44 years.
I have no idea what's next. I really don't.
Hard to determine for everyone on High Island as folks like Robert Russ clean up after Umberto. Now, as you can see, the situation is pretty grim out here. People are still cleaning up. This home has been empty tonight. Fortunately, there are no deaths or serious injury to report, but the utility company tells us that people still have a lot of problems, and it may be about 4 days before they get their power back on. What neighbors are still counting their blessings tonight because they know this could have been a lot worse, and here's why. This is the train car that derailed last night. This is right in these folks' backyard. Now, it was a whole lot worse yesterday because if you look at the mud tracks, you can see that Union Pacific actually placed this parallel to the tracks, moving it out of the way. It was pointed actually in the direction of the home. And this is what the damage you can see here, the most extensive, the most concerning, the property damage for the owners. They have complained about this train track and all the problems it's had over the years. And last night, their worst fears came true in so many ways. When you see the flattened fences, torn down trees, and destroyed patios, you know this was a train wreck. But to really understand why neighbors are so frustrated by yesterday's derailment, you've got to talk to Judy Kissinger.
I'm just thankful no one got hurt.
Kissinger has owned this home since 1978.
For years, ever since I've been here. They've been complaining about it.
She says neighbors know the tracks so intimately, they can tell by certain sounds if something is wrong.
You can hear a clack, 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 clack.
Rich Thomas is one of those neighbors. He's called and emailed Union Pacific for years. Each time he says company supervisors ensure him things are fine. But over the past weekend, he and other neighbors, just judging by the sounds, knew something was wrong. Union Pacific says the cause of the derailment has yet to be determined and that inspectors will be looking for 3 key factors. The first thing they'll look at is to make sure the rails were in good working shape. Then the next thing inspectors will look at is the wheels on the car, because if they aren't right, they could cause the train to jump the tracks. And the last thing investigators will look at is human error. But this can only be determined by looking at the black box, which is inside. But what really concerns neighbors like Thomas is the promise that chemical cars would not roll behind their homes. Yesterday, chemical cars were attached to this run.
It could have been a lot worse.
Union Pacific spokesperson Joe Arbona disputes neighbors' claims.
We have tracks that are inspected on a weekly basis.
Arbona also says Union Pacific is required to carry certain hazardous materials. But Judy Kissinger says what neighbors want is simple: proper maintenance of the tracks and no chemical cars. So tonight, they still have concerns.
Oh, yes.
Now we move to the cleanup portion of this derailment. It's going to take a lot for them to do this. As you can see on this train car here, it still has a lot of mud packed with a lot of goods, and that's going to be the biggest part of this problem. They've got to get all this grain that came out of this train car out, and the way they're going to do that is they're going to have to bring in a vacuum cleaner to suck it all up, both inside the car and outside the car. Well, Stephanie, I tell you what, if you were looking for a huge, overwhelming police presence here at Bush Intercontinental Airport, you would not find that today. But for passengers flying overseas, security is definitely a top concern. For intercontinental passenger Michael Dobe,
Pardon me?
it was the usual hustle and bustle of trying to catch a flight. Dobe is bound for London Heathrow and had no idea
No, I hadn't heard of that yet.
that terrorists had crashed an SUV into Scotland's Glasgow airport.
I'm supposed to go to Glasgow next week, so I think I'm probably going to change my plans. I probably won't be going.
Hours after that attack here at home, passengers like Dobe noticed watchful patrolmen and bomb-sniffing dogs, but there were not huge numbers of police present. Dobe says he'd like to see more officers on patrol.
That is concerning, definitely.
Because an SUV was used in this morning's attack, some feel it may be time that we change our drop-off and pick-up policies at U.S. airports. Eyewitness News cameras were rolling as cars were allowed to sit for long periods of time today. Dobe fears standing cars can be turned into deadly weapons and says security should be tighter in that regard.
That's probably not a good idea. Who knows what's in those cars?
Dobe doesn't know what he'll find on the other side of the pond when it comes to security, but what is clear is that his eyes and ears will be open for danger.
You got to watch out for people that look like they shouldn't be there.
Now, people flying aren't the only people who will see stepped-up security. In fact, people using mass transit will also see stiffer security throughout the weeks to come, which is why the Department of Homeland Security is recommending that everyone get to their points of travel hours ahead of time.
Introducing us now to Mama Randolph. Craig?
I tell you what, Alona, it's not every day you get the chance to sit and talk with someone who has seen all the major events of the past century. Today I did. I learned about her love for life and her love for gospel.
My constant friend.
Hers is a voice that has spanned a century.
I sing
a timeless vocal reminder of what living life by the book, the good book that is.
Why should the shadow
Meet Mama Randolph. She's a century and 2 years old and is still active.
I have plenty to do.
Feisty.
I'm the oldest one in the church. Nobody in the church is 102 years old but me.
And a very, very wise woman.
Yeah. Well, just keep the Lord in front. I just follow after him.
Mama Randolph belted her first note as just a child.
I started singing when I was 7 years old. And I haven't quit yet.
That first solo happened in the schoolhouse.
But my teacher was the one that started. When we had our first school cruising, he stood by me.
That song, Jesus Loves Me. Now, decades later, she's still singing. This is Mama Randolph at Gospel by the Sea just a few months ago. Now she's possibly heading to the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest recording artist alive.
Well, it just makes me feel wanted, for one thing. That's one of the things that I don't have no problem with, because people think that I'm sincere in what I'm doing, and in which I am. So that makes me feel good. And I just continue to try to do the best I can to please people and to please the Lord.
An absolutely great story, great woman. I sat with her for about an hour, and I got to tell you, I learned more about the world than I could have ever read in any book and ever read on the internet. She's an absolutely wonderful person, and she credits again her love for people and helping people to living such a long and prosperous life, guys.
All we can say is wow. At 102 years old and that voice still that strong, Craig.
Absolutely. I mean, she has no problem just belting it out, Tom. I mean, it came from right here, right from the heart.
Yeah.
It just makes you know that it's very genuine.
Fills the room. What a beautiful story, Craig. Thank